Carl Jung made one quiet observation in 1921 that modern work culture has been trying to outrun ever since. He noticed his most successful patients were also his most exhausted ones. Their careers were thriving. Their souls were collapsing. He gave this exhaustion a name. He called it the burden of the persona, and he warned it would only grow worse. A century later, that prediction has come true in every office, every meeting, every email signature you have ever signed. Tonight you will understand exactly why work drains you, even when nothing about your job is technically wrong. Jung was a young Swiss psychiatrist when he first began studying masks, not theatrical masks, psychological ones. He observed that every patient wore a face for the world, polished, agreeable, professional. Then they came home and crumbled. He borrowed an old Latin word for this face, persona. It originally meant the mask worn by actors on the Greek stage. The persona, Jung wrote, is the part of you designed to meet the expectations of the outside world. It is not bad, it is necessary. Without it, you could not function in society at all. The trouble begins when the persona becomes louder than the self underneath it. Jung saw this happening in lawyers, doctors, executives, clergy. The most respected people were often the most internally hollow. They had become so good at being who they were supposed to be that they had forgotten who they actually were. This, Jung said, is the secret cost of professional life, and it is the deepest reason work exhausts you. The principle is simple, but it cuts deep. Energy follows authenticity. When what you express matches what you feel, energy flows freely through you. You can work for hours and feel alive. When what you express must constantly override what you feel, energy is spent suppressing yourself. That suppression is invisible, but it is metabolic. Your body pays the cost in a currency called fatigue. Jung explained that the persona is not the problem. The fusion of you with the persona is the problem. You stop wearing the mask starts wearing you, and the real self goes underground. Most modern teachers miss this distinction. They tell you to quit your job, change careers, find your passion. Jung would have laughed gently at that advice. He knew the issue was not the job, it was the identification. You can wear the persona in any job and feel alive. You can also fuse with it at your dream job and feel dead. The exhaustion is not coming from the work, it is coming from the impersonation. Picture this. You walk into a meeting on a Tuesday morning. Within seconds, your voice changes pitch. Your posture shifts. Your vocabulary narrows. Your laugh becomes shorter, more controlled, more strategic. You did not decide to do any of this. The persona took over the moment you crossed the threshold. By 5 in the afternoon, you cannot understand why you feel like you have been hit by a train. You have. The train is called sustained self-suppression, and Jung mapped it almost 100 years ago. But Jung discovered something even more uncomfortable about this pattern. The longer you live behind the persona, the harder it becomes to locate the self underneath it. Patients would come to him in their 40s and 50s, unable to answer a simple question: what do you actually want? They had spent so many years performing competence that the inner voice had grown faint, almost silent. Jung called this the midlife crisis, though he meant something deeper than sports cars and affairs. He meant the moment the persona finally cracks under its own weight and demands to meet the soul again. In modern life, that crisis is no longer waiting for midlife. It is arriving on Sunday nights. That dread you feel before Monday, that heaviness as the week begins, Jung would recognize it instantly. It is a self protesting another week, a being silenced by the mask. Carl Jung wrote in his memoirs about a moment in his own career when he nearly drowned in this pattern. He had become a famous psychiatrist, a respected professor, a man with titles, and he felt nothing inside. He realized his persona had eaten his life. He had to walk away from prestigious roles to find himself again. What he discovered in that descent became the entire foundation of depth psychology. He learned that the persona must be loosened, not destroyed, worn lightly, not fused with. This is the part most modern self-help never addresses. You do not need to burn the mask. You need to remember you are the one wearing it. That single recognition changes everything. Stay with me here. This next part will explain something about yourself you have never been able to articulate. The reason work exhausts you is not the hours. It is not the workload. It is not even the people. It is the gap between the version of you that shows up and the version of you that actually exists. The wider that gap, the more energy your psyche burns just to keep the performance running. Some people have a small gap. Their work allows most of who they are to be present. They tire normally. Other people have a chasm. Almost nothing of the real self is permitted at work. They burn out completely. You can measure your own gap with one honest question. How much of me is allowed in the room? If the answer is most of me, your fatigue is ordinary. Sleep will fix it. If the answer is almost none, your fatigue is existential. Sleep will not touch it. This is what Jung meant when he said neurosis is the suffering of the soul that has not found its meaning. Comment below with one word that names your persona at work. Performer, helper, achiever, caretaker, diplomat. Naming the mask is the first crack in the fusion. Notice what you typed. Notice how familiar it feels. Now return with me to the deeper teaching, because Jung had a method, not just a diagnosis. Jung's method began with a single practice he gave to nearly every patient. He called it active recognition. You do not fight the persona. You do not abandon it. You simply notice when it activates. The moment you walk into the office and feel your voice change, you say silently, "The mask is on now." The moment you write a careful email and feel yourself shrink, you say silently, "The mask is on now." This sounds small. It is not small. It is the beginning of separating you from the role. Jung observed that consciousness itself is the dissolving agent. What you see clearly loses its grip on you. The persona does not lose power because you reject it. It loses power because you recognize it. If you have ever noticed yourself doing this, you are not broken. You are encountering the part of yourself Jung called the false self. The false self is not a villain. It is a survival strategy that outlived its usefulness. It was built when you were young to win approval, avoid punishment, secure belonging. It worked. It got you through school, through early jobs, through the climb. The problem is that it never received the memo that you are an adult now and can choose differently. So it keeps running, keeps performing, keeps exhausting the real self that lives behind it. Tonight before you sleep, try this single practice. It is the one Jung recommended for persona fatigue. Take a sheet of paper. On one side, write the version of you that showed up at work today. Describe how that version spoke, moved, decided, smiled. Be specific, be honest, do not flinch. On the other side, write the version of you that wanted to show up but was not allowed. What would that version have said in the meeting? What would that version have refused? Read both sides slowly. Do not try to resolve them. Just let yourself see the gap. That gap is where your exhaustion lives. That gap is also where your individuation begins. Do this once a week for a month. Something quiet will start to change inside you. You will begin to feel the difference between performing and being, between role and self. You will start to let small amounts of the real self leak into the workday. A truer sentence here, a pause there. This is not rebellion. This is integration. Jung would call it the first step toward wholeness. If Carl Jung were sitting across from you right now, he would not tell you to quit your job. He would not tell you to find your passion. He would not tell you to follow your bliss. He would lean forward and ask one quiet question. Who is the one wearing the mask? Not which mask, not why the mask. Who is the one underneath watching it all happen? That awareness, he would say, is the only part of you that does not get tired. The persona tires, the role tires, the performance tires, the witness behind them does not. He would tell you that finding that witness, even for 1 minute a day, is the work of a lifetime. And he would tell you it is the only work that ever truly heals the exhaustion of being a person in the world. He once wrote that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Not who your job needs you to be, not who your family expected, not who your fear demanded. The work exhausts the false self because the false self was never meant to live this long. It was a costume for a season. You have been wearing it like a skin for decades. Tonight, before sleep, write the two versions of you. The one who showed up, the one who stayed home inside. Let them see each other. That meeting is where the real life finally begins. You are not your persona. You are not your job title. You are not the role you have rehearsed for years. You are the awareness that can finally take the mask off at the end of the day and rest. If this reached something honest in you, subscribe to the Archetype code. There is more of this work waiting. The privilege of a lifetime, Jung said, is becoming who you truly are. Start tonight. Start small. Start now.